Hi, everyone. I am so excited for this podcast. It's a special one. A startup at the intersection of AI, cloud, and mobile will launch with this podcast. We start with an introduction of one of the co-founders, Allwyn Sequeira, and we'll also go over his background. Then we'll set the stage with the massive technical trends taking shape in the industry now, which will lead us to introduce you to Highway 9. Okay, with that said, let's go meet Allwyn. Allwyn, how are you?
Great, Nick. Good to see you.
It's so great to see you. I'm actually really excited about this podcast. I've been really looking forward to it all day. So I think before we start, I want to make sure like everybody knows who you are. Like, I've known you for a long time, but maybe not everybody else has. So, why don't you talk a little bit about your journey, your career journey, which kind of leads you to now Highway 9?
Well, at the risk of aging myself, started a long time ago in the early 80s on early concepts of the internet, the CSNet and NSFNet, and worked on the first enterprise networking stack at HP, where we created management, switching, routing, TCP/IP stacks. That was my introduction to networking. That got involved with the creator of the first LAN company, Ralph Ungerman. Ralph Ungerman, creator of Ungerman Bass, one of the first LAN companies. He and I founded a company called First Virtual, which was a voice video data networking company at the edge. Very fortunate to have founded the company, taking it public in the late 90s. And then after that, got involved with the backbone of the internet routing, etc. A lot of the who's who of the internet were involved in that company. Then got involved for the world's first virtual security company, Blue Lane, which got acquired by VMware. And that's how I got involved with network and security virtualization, which led to the software-defined data center. We acquired Nicira. We created, software-defined networks, which led to the private clouds. Then we started building hybrid clouds, connecting on-prem private clouds with the Amazons and Googles. And then the last stint at VMware was creating a 5G cloud platforms so that enterprise could take advantage of the rollout of 5G across the country, led by Dish Networks. So that was my stint leading up to my current company, if you will.
Storied, career path all across the networking industry. I remember Ralph. I remember UB, as well. I remember actually you and Jay Cherie there, many, many years ago. So, so if you dated yourself, I think I just helped to date myself, with that, as right. Well. But yes. But the bottom line, I think it's fabulous to have been part of something so big and so powerful for kind of the world economy. As to building kind of the building blocks, of the internet. So I know I'm very proud of that. I'm kind of proud of your journey and your participation, in that, as well. So
no, we've been fortunate, Nick. You, me, and so many folks that helped build the backbone of the internet and seen the multiple stages of the internet growth leading to the current phase. So really, really exciting. And that's ultimately what gets me so excited to be part of the frontier of connectivity, clouds, etc.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and also that was really great. I remember talking with you when you were at VMware with the Nicira acquisition when you were in the office of the CTO, role, as well. So, great company to be working for. And I think what was really good about what the story that you just told is that every major transition you were part of. And I think, I want us to kind of guide maybe our discussion about what's the transition happening now, right? And so I pulled together some numbers, and so let's chat about kind of like just try to get a status of kind of where we are, in the marketplace. We know the number of laptops are far outpaced desktop devices, right? I think even like last year there was around over 200, million laptops sold, which was about almost 3 times, or about 2.7 times greater than the number of desktops. I think there's another way that some of the analysts look at this, and they basically look at the number of people connected to the internet, and that's about 5 billion. There's about 8 billion people on the planet, right? And about 67% of that number, that 5 billion, are laptop users. So we're a very mobile computing environment, right? And then when we add smartphones, the smartphone numbers are friggin' staggering, here. So it's like, almost 7 billion smartphones, it's like high 80%, so we're clearly, and it's obvious, like we all have a laptop and we all have a smartphone, that we're kind of carrying around. In traditional IT, so when in the beginning part of your career and also my career, we were really connecting up, computers, together, whether it's in data centers or whether that's in campuses. That's all changed. I want you to talk a little bit about that change, and really how are we now addressing, this more of a mobile workforce?
Correct. I think if you look at the paradigm in the 90s, the paradigm in the office was the notion of an office. You had an office computer with an office phone. Everything was connected to a LAN. Then we started little by little, untethering the desktop and having Wi-Fi, albeit very localized. Then over the next 20 years or so, we spent a lot of time taking a lot of the applications and servers and moving that to the cloud. So that happened, and it happened in a big way to the public clouds, and companies like VMware also enabled you to create a private cloud. So the entire big focus there was removing the what no longer mattered is where things were run. They ran somewhere up in the cloud. People did not need to know where they were. Meanwhile, however, all the folks in the enterprise, the desktops and the people using the desktop still had a very fixed notion sitting at a desktop and accessing that. Then smartphones, as you know, took off, mobile devices took off, and then of all things, COVID happened. And in those 2 years, everyone ultimately left the office. Everyone ultimately went to their homes, accessing the same resources. Because the cloud world was already under motion, it made it relatively straightforward for folks from their home to access the cloud resources, whether they're apps, whether they're services. But then as we came back from COVID, a strange thing happened. And here I was talking to the CIO of MIT. He and I had gone through the start of the hybrid cloud era, the private clouds and network virtualization. We had been very successful in moving and migrating all the workloads to the cloud. We came back and he made this remarkable note. We started our company, the current company, during COVID. And so these are very important issues to us. People came back to work, but they had the same behavior that they had during COVID. So people effectively came back to the classroom with their laptop and involved in Zoom calls. So why? Because they loved the fact that they could record the classroom, they could play it back at their speed, they could absorb the knowledge at their speed. So they came back and into the classroom with that same paradigm. And guess what? Things went haywire because the networks were never designed to be everyone video streaming from their desktop. So at that stage, it became very clear to us a completely new paradigm is needed. An important observation made by some of the CIOs I talked to was 97% of their users were using some kind of a mobile device. Whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a laptop, they might use the desktop and things like that, but their primary mode of communication with their resources was via the smartphone. At that point, it became very clear to us that we need to take a fundamentally new approach to connectivity and bringing together these mobile users and devices into the network.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? So like we spent the 90s and the early noughts wiring things up, and then the later part of the 2010s, it was really all about kind of connecting everyone wirelessly. And, the numbers that we just talked about prove it. And also what you were just mentioning proved it as well. So there's another component to this too that's coming online, right? there's roughly I think about 30 billion or so network devices. About 15 of that is kind of OT devices, operational, devices. Those are becoming cloudified. They're becoming connected via mobile as well. There's a large security component, associated with that to integrate that infrastructure into IT. So I think what we're really kind of getting at is that the number of network devices has not just, grown kind of geometrically on the mobile side of things over the last couple of years, but now we're adding a multiplier on that in terms of like OT devices, as well. So the whole paradigm on how we used to do connectivity is over or is changing now towards mobile. We have Wi-Fi. We also have 5G that's coming into the marketplace. I want to talk a little bit about 5G, in 1 second, but I think mobile connectivity and also applications around into cloud and also public and private cloud are in there. So I think anything do you want to add, to that kind of dynamic that's also happening?
Yes. If you think about enterprises, there were three buying centers in the past. You had the IT organization classically in charge of things like compute and storage and apps and things like that. Mm-hmm. You had the telco buyer that was buying, connectivity from the Verizons and AT&Ts and T-Mos of the world and buying for subscribers and extending the signal into the enterprise. That was the second buyer. And the third buyer, like you mentioned, is the OT buyer. But in today's world, that's all converging. Why? Because this multiplicity of devices, they're getting connected into intelligent systems which belong to IT. So OT might own the sensors, but they got to roll up into an AI-driven system. That's the other big trend that's happening. Almost every enterprise in the world today has got to be AI ready. Why? Because of the efficiencies of scale and operating at a completely different machine-to-machine scale, a lot of processing done. So when you think about this paradigm, then we can no longer treat this as three different worlds: a smartphone access device, IT apps and services, and OT sensors, and even things like logistics and manufacturing kind of devices that are all mobile in nature. So we come to a very different world. There's a big gap. Why can we not think of this as a convergence between all these things that are beginning to come together in the enterprise and managed from the cloud? And that's the genesis of a lot of the new changes in architecture and a new vantage point. That's the setting for a new architecture, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I'm glad you brought kind of the AI discussion, into the forefront over here. We've been spending a lot of time on kind of AI networking in particular, and I think when the numbers are getting like that we're seeing right now, the complexity of managing this stuff is well beyond the tools that we have today. Yes. And so there's a lot of focus, especially clearly every major supplier, on the planet, these days are now announcing AI networking kind of capabilities and tools. Actually, I had a really interesting meeting earlier today with Chris Moretti from Cigna on the whole AI discussion. What they're looking for is where networking used to be about connecting things, they're really looking for networking to be a service for applications, meaning that you have AI in between the two, and the AI basically provides a path or a way in which to connect that application to that user, adhere to a policy, understand the security posture, of that path, and then provide that service to that particular application. Get rid of the toil that's been in the infrastructure for decades, as long as you and I have been in this industry.
And if you think about what you just said, what that means is these devices are smart. Data is acquired from these devices. So there's got to be data. It's got to be everywhere. You can't be in the context of just one Wi-Fi AP or one room. It's got to be across much larger coverage areas. And it's got to be always on. It's got to be very low latency, because these devices are feeding off each other and working with each other in real time. So you cannot go up to the public cloud and back. 150 millisecond latency ain't going to cut it when these things are are beginning to interface with each other. So you need a control network, a data network that's local, governed by some local AIs and things like that. A very different, much more dynamic environment operating at scale, lots of concurrency, low latency, high performance, resilient, et cetera, et cetera. All the kind of attributes that a wired network had, except that it's got to be untethered, if you will.
Yeah, it's a fresh look at kind of the problem set that is confronting the marketplace. So let's talk about Highway 9. All right. So I'm going to leave it to you to introduce Highway 9 to everyone. But something I'm really excited about because, again, you are now in that intersection of cloud, mobility, and AI, which is three really powerful trends.
No, I can tell you this, having created network virtualization, security virtualization, which led to software-defined data centers and hybrid clouds and things like that, we took a fresh look at this and we suddenly saw we've done a great job of moving the apps and servers and services to the cloud so that IT doesn't have to worry about that. So you can get best in class, best practices and all available to you. Now you have all these things we talked about, mobile users with mobile phones, smartphones, AI devices, OT devices. We said, for a second, let's talk about what is needed to be created here. We said, why don't we start afresh, create the notion of a mobile cloud that you can have onboard all of these devices. So let's, for a moment, take a step back, create this mobile cloud. What does a mobile cloud do? It allows for easy SIM-based authenticated entry into this mobile network, because almost everything on this cloud is mobile, etc., and needs to work and operate almost instantaneously. So job number one is get them to all onboard in a secure, connected way into this mobile cloud that happens to be local. It cannot be out there in a public cloud because you don't have the luxury of going up and down, backhauling through a public cloud or a telco network and back. It's got to be here and local. So if you take those two things and you bring it all together, you then begin to realize what's the best technology to make that happen. It's not Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is limited range, right? Wi-Fi is per office, per room. It's not usually good for uncarpeted areas, parking garages, going across campus in an untethered fashion. Also, Wi-Fi was like Ethernet. It's a shared medium. It's like multiple people raising the hand. You get access to the medium. But the more people that raise the hand, like the folks we are talking to, reaching the heights of scale, if you will, with Wi-Fi, the more 80%, 90% people raising the hand, the latency and the character predictably goes to hell in a handbasket. Likewise, mobility is very critical. These robots are moving across cluttered areas, indoor to outdoor, moving stuff at the direction of some control plane. So you need an always-on network. You need to have mobility, etc. The only network that can do that is a cellular network. And if you think about it, I always tell people the cellular technology is incredible. Think about driving at 80 miles per hour on a highway. You seamlessly make a call going from one cell tower to the other, and you just expect that to work. You expect your maps and everything to work. That's incredible technology. Unfortunately, it's always been the purview of the operators. And this problem has to be a blend of what the operators give you, because you can only do so much coming outside in. You also have to have an inside out that's owned and controlled by IT to service the need of their new AI enterprise, the new mobile users, etc. So we said, let's start with a mobile cloud at Highway 9. And that's exactly what we are focused on. Build a private mobile cloud for this AI enterprise that one by one we'll take care of all the hard problems. And it's a very tough thing to pull together a private cellular network. You need to manage the spectrum, you need to manage the SIM, you need to manage the radios, you need to manage the packet cores, which are doing the signaling that proactively keeps roaming going. And it's a very complex, but we took all that complexity, built a software-defined network system, a software distributed system, if you will, at the edge, and deployed it at the edge. So a lot of complexity, but but we've been doing that for the last 20 years. We took 20 years of experience, brought it to bear, built a software-defined distributed edge where you host the control plane for this cellular world, built on top of a private mobile network built on 5G technology. But the technology, enterprises don't have the time of day to go and learn and get PhDs in this technology. If you mention any of the terms, 3GPP terms there, you'll get people scurrying for shelter. So it is very important to hide it all behind the simplicity and the instantaneous availability of a cloud. And that's exactly what we achieved. Cloud native realization of a mobile cloud, that you can get all these devices that are sitting out there, whether they're directly attached to the cellular network or via a gateway. For example, IoT gateways that can get avoiding this IoT sprawl. You can get a aggregation of a lot of IoT devices through a cellular network hopping onto the mobile cloud. Likewise, the AI machines, likewise your clients. So it is such a simple concept. Once you see it, say, why did we not always do this? It was not possible in the past because a lot of things came together to make this achievable for the first time.
Yeah, I love the whole aggregation aspect of what you're doing. So you could have 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, devices, on a campus environment, and those are all going to be private, but like they can now roam outside of that they can go to lunch and then they're right onto a public network and or take their laptop to Starbucks or what have you. And so what that basically does is that it allows you to have kind of that same kind of service on campus, as you're kind of leaving the campus as well. So it just extends that range. And I think clearly you're right. There are very specific applications that really require kind of the low latency that whether that's 5G or other kind of cellular services, are available. And so you get that now. You can get that both on campus within a kind of smart manufacturing facility, and then that becomes part of your experience. You get to move around, with that. I think the other thing too about where you basically you're authenticating, you're onboarding, you're authenticating each and every device. One of the big things around kind of the whole OT and IT integration has been around identity and how do you authenticate identity. So our industry has really been focusing on people. And not particular devices, and now since you're kind of centralized there and you have control of that, you can now actually authenticate both devices and also you can authenticate the people, and then you can have policies and rules that are associated with each of those particular identities, which will really, I think, go a long way in facilitating the OT and IT integration, from a security point of view.
Yeah, well said there, Nick. I keep telling folks this, what's the fundamental difference in the outlook here? It's a network of people. It's a network of people, and these people are by invite only coming and getting on board onto this network in an authenticated fashion into an end-to-end encrypted fashion tunnel through. So you can never completely get your networks secure. This notion about zero trust and all begs a lot of questions. But at the least, you're reducing the attack surfaces by invite-only networks that are purpose-built networks with different networks for different applications, etc. So you can keep the scopes large. And as you can imagine, it's a network of people, and you have all their identities well represented by the devices they carry. Likewise, you can do things like geofencing. You can only have the context within the range of a device. So someone sitting beyond a geofenced area and all that may also be protected. So these are all the kind of things that become very important as you start building ad hoc networks, mobile networks, bringing in new applications on the fly, highly secure applications. All these new use cases start manifesting themselves.
Yeah, I think that's really great, and I'm sure there's going to be, as it's always happens when you're kind of launching a company, you have one or two use cases, and those numbers just grow as you see how consumers are utilizing, your solution, and you discover more problems that you could address, with it as well. So the way I kind of view it is that you kind of have, the big thing that the cloud providers offered was convenience. Right, you can spin something up, you can spin something down, you can start something really quick, and so now you have that. You're kind of you're offering that convenience. What the cloud providers really didn't offer, though, was control. That was kind of the whole shared responsibility part of that. But in here, this is really a private kind of corporation solution. It's on-prem right now, so you have control and you have convenience, of this kind of connectivity. So you can configure it for various different underlying use cases. That's what it seems like to me. So you have that aspect of the cloud mobile. Right?
Yes, and to be very clear, yes, you have your private network where you can very seamlessly attach, much like you always attach to your Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile network. You have all that capability. But I will add that because it's built on 5G technology and because the protocols by definition ensured interworking between all of these 5G systems, there is automatic interworking with the Verizons of the world, the AT&Ts of the world, and T-Mobiles. I don't know if you are aware that with the new iOS 17 and the new updates, literally you're attaching to a private network has become a first-class citizen. So much like you were attached into your plan of record, whether it's Verizon, etc. In addition, you'll now have a private plan. So effectively, there's a notion of a private provider that's easily latched onto, and you can get the best of both worlds. You can be on two networks at the same time for two different purposes. The cellular technology, I must say, this has been well thought through. The operators and all have not built 100 million user networks just that easily. It took a lot of work and painstaking work over the last 30 years, etc. And it's a huge taking all that technology and bringing it down into micro sites, if you will.
Yeah, I think, it's like, so I think what I was kind of getting at there, and thank you for the clarification, Allwyn, is that it's not just the convenience of connecting all these devices, especially now, like, with kind of eSIMs that you can actually now plug into kind of a 5G, network. But like you have a range of different mobile networks you can connect into, and also public on the other side. So you're kind of virtualizing all of that complexity that would normally you would have to kind of deal with, whether you're a user or whether you're kind of an operator, an IT operator. And I would assume that you're kind of presenting to the kind of IT team a whole bunch of like dashboards that they're familiar with, and not a bunch of dashboards that you might see in an OSS control center,
Oh yeah, that by far is what we see. The single biggest difference between a telco dashboard and an entire enterprise dashboard. I think the telcos, by definition, because they're handling the case of hundreds of millions of folks, they have these very complex dashboard. Those cockpits are very sophisticated. In the enterprise, it's all about simplifying, putting as much into cloud 360-degree views, day zero, day one, day two. All when something fails, it's not for people to go and search through myriads of data. It should all AI ops and all are built into cloud systems today. Likewise, configuring these radios and all that stuff, we use AI techniques to be able to a priori configure all the different things that are required to get a radio up and running. So that is as simple as setting up your Wi-Fi network, yet with the sophistication of something that the cellular networks did, yet maintaining that umbilical cord to the operators. That's the real big deal here, which I believe is necessary to solve all of the above, else you have an incomplete solution. And there's been the increasing rise of noise about the space over the last 3-4 years. But I think what's been missing is the complete end-to-end solution wrapped in a nice cloud offering that's easy to leverage and consume in an enterprise.
Yeah, well, I think also too, it's that I'm not, disparaging the service providers, but they are very much consumer oriented, and so in the large enterprise marketplace, they always struggle. They struggle with those particular use cases. So actually, this masks that from them. It's like they can basically say, okay, it's almost like I'm going to do a volume kind of deal here. You're an enterprise, here's a certain amount of bandwidth, a certain number of endpoints. that can connect into our network. And you can have, and I'm assuming with the Highway 9 is that you can have kind of relationships with Verizon, with AT&T, T-Mobile, Dish, what have you, on the back end. So it's kind of a kind of mobile service provider, environment that you can create. So you might have various different service agreements with each one of those, or maybe just one of them, depending upon really what your use case is.
It all starts with a win-win proposition. I remember when we were at VMware, we used to control the enterprise, and then you had the public clouds. On day one, everyone thought everything will move to the public cloud. In reality, it turns out there's a win-win proposition for the private cloud working with the public clouds, and not just one public cloud. People wanted all three clouds. I see the same thing happening here. The benefit for the operators to work with us is because we make it easy for them to penetrate into an enterprise, and the benefit to IT is they get this capability under their control, but it's a duality, right? IT, the MNOs think they have control because from their lens, they get the control and visibility and penetration into the enterprise. Likewise, from IT's perspective, these radios are shared, the infrastructure is shared, but you get the benefits of the spectrum and all of that goodness. So all these things coming together, ultimately, the hybrid cloud is the way to go, the hybrid mobile cloud, where the operator, the IT, and the users all participate on this network, if you will.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and not too far down the road is that they're selling Highway 9 into the large enterprise. This is you have them as a distribution channel because it offers a nice, I think, packaging for the service providers to actually deliver, 5G and other services into the marketplace. And
correct, because this notion of network slicing, operators can do a good job coming to the edge, but once you're inside the enterprise, it's much harder to extend the concept of a slice into the innards of an IT organization with a technology like ours, where we can map the slice into multiple mobile zones for different applications, different users, different use cases. That's the holy grail, if you will. And I think operators will begin to realize the power of the inside out combining with the outside in approach.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's kind of slice management and kind of configuration and orchestration, within kind of the controller, and then also just all the orchestration around onboarding and configuration. It's the mitigation of all the complexity of all the various different mobile providers, provides a packaging to the consumer, the enterprise consumer, on how to manage this, and it delivers us a better, hopefully a better quality of service where they have mobility, they have low latency, they have better security. Doesn't mean that Wi-Fi will go away. Wi-Fi will clearly still be there, and it has a really good kind of in that kind of broadcast domain that it operates within, but. I think, you're offering something here around, that can scale, much more and scale at performance that we really haven't had that much in the kind of in the mobile world and the I don't want to poo-poo the Wi-Fi folks, but it's like kind of in Wi-Fi.
No, that's very much so. And again, we started, the reason all our prior endeavors succeeded because we went very deep with our first few customers to ensure that the things operate at scale. It's only then that you distribute. Likewise, we are now coming out of stealth. We've got 3 or 4 really good customers, a very well-known car manufacturer, one of the top higher ed institutions, MIT, one of the big commercial real estate, 1.5 million square foot buildings. So we know now this operates at scale. So it's ready for prime time. And it's important that you don't go out with your company too soon, because you'll get a lot of POCs that go nowhere fast. It's important. But it's very critical that the offering be complete, the offering scales, the offering is seamless, and the and it can be run by mere mortals, right? Not PhDs or things like that. So
yeah. No, that's great, Allwyn. You have all the major components of it. You have kind of the convenience and the control of kind of a cloud environment for delivery. You have within actually your own stack, you have kind of AI algorithms to make that process simpler and easier. Also now, as AI makes its way within overall kind of networking infrastructure and works on behalf of applications, you hopefully can provide tools, to those AI algorithms that can assure that everyone is going to get a great quality service. And now you're giving a range of different options, connectivity options that those algorithms might be able to utilize to deliver, on the policies that are set forth, by those corporations. And then I'm sure there can be also like cost arbitrage. It's like, you maybe, there might be a really good deal that you can get with one carrier versus another one, and that might shift over time, and you might be able to arbitrage that, as well. So I think control is a beautiful thing. It's like having control of your world is a very beautiful thing, and I think you're kind of giving folks control of over their mobile world.
Yeah, we think so. We think so. Yeah, we're pretty excited. We're pretty excited about this journey because this, unlike some of the earlier endeavors, this affects almost everyone, and the timing is here, right? Or everyone's going AI. AI is changing the way we think and behave in the enterprise. Likewise, the clients and all the things we said up to now. So we're very excited about the opportunity to be involved with yet another important architecture. The mobile cloud architecture we think should prevail. It is the natural architecture to onboard all of your mobile, estate, if you will, and have a unified architecture. So in the final analysis, there will be the public cloud, there'll be the mobile cloud that's local, and then there'll be the telcos and all of those as big spots, if you will, out there, apart from your commercial or a mobile, residential, if you will. But we think campuses and enterprises will be going mobile as they go AI.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that, and no, this all hangs together like really, really well. And I think there's one market segment that we haven't talked about, but it's the whole cloud edge. Like this becomes like the kind of connectivity engine, or could be the connectivity engine for cloud edge, as well. So we can kind of have that topic for maybe another time, unless you want to say something.
Very quickly. I remember my conversations with Pat Gelsinger, our CEO at VMware. As much as the public cloud is important, the edge cloud is a very, very hard, intractable problem because the public clouds are homogenized, highly concentrated, densified, homogenized offering. The edge is it's a museum of artifacts of all different architectures, but it's a necessity because AI operates at the edge in real time, and everything has to happen at the edge. Unfortunately, at the edge, there are myriads of architectures. It's not owned by a single entity, and that's why if you think about, there's no separation between an on-prem mobile cloud versus an edge mobile cloud. These are two ways of saying the same thing. I know we spent a lot of time in our previous lives on talking about life as it moves to the edge and all that stuff. Again, the edge is different on different people's perspective, but ultimately I look at the edge as a separation of domains, one domain owned by one provider, another domain owned by another provider. But there are multiple ways to skin that cat. But that's a topic that deserves its own attention. We could spend a couple of hours just on the edge. Well,
that's for sure. So I have a couple of do you have a few more minutes?
I do, Nick.
Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you. Where'd the name come from? Highway 9.
Highway 9. So the founders, we all live here in Highway 9. I don't know if people are familiar. Usually Atherton and Woodside are the enclaves of the VCs, while places like Saratoga, Los Gatos, and all the place for where entrepreneurs live. A lot of the CEOs and entrepreneurs and startups here in Silicon Valley live in this neck of the woods: Saratoga, Montecito, Los Gatos, and Highway 9 is the network that runs and connects all. So the founding team, we are all here, and we didn't want to make the mistake of naming a company after a technology, because you and I know technologies change. one day's winners and the next day's, have beens and things like that. So we wanted a name that lasts, and we're proud of Highway 9, and we're proud of all the architecture and all that have come out from companies that have built, companies like Arista, companies like Juniper, companies like Cisco, companies like all of the Mario, Luca, Prem enterprises. So many of them have come and been housed here out of the Highway 9 pathway, if you will. So for us, it's
that's really cool.
Place. It's a special place, not just a destination, but the journey is as important.
Yeah, I just remember Highway 9 is on the way to Santa Cruz. You know?
Yes. Yes, it's got
like,
all the wineries. It's got, it's the good life. It's a good life.
It's a beautiful, absolutely fabulous area, kind of Los Gatos over to Santa Cruz. It's a great stretch of California, that's for sure. Are you comfortable talking about investors, who the investors are?
Yes, yeah. So we've taken down close to $25 million overall. Our main key investor at this stage is Mayfield. I know if you're familiar, Mayfield is one of the premier VCs in Silicon Valley, and with deep knowledge of networking. So Naveen Chadha, the managing director, Urshit, the key person there representing Mayfield and involved with us. These are folks we've known for a while, deeply involved. So for me, it was very important to get tied in. And Mayfield is very much involved with the whole. They've got a fund based completely on AI. They've spent a lot of time in networking, and they've spent time with cloud. So Mayfield is our primary Series A. We just closed the Series A round recently. We have other investors like Detroit to venture capital and all, because the commercial real estate owned in Detroit and all, there's a massive resurgence going on there. So we took down folks like them. General Catalyst was involved with us and things like that. So we've got what we believe is a solid base. As you know, I'm pretty old-fashioned, running the company the old-fashioned way, not getting ahead of ski tips, and just building this one enterprise at a time, and then ultimately we think this architecture will prevail.
Yeah, it's great. Great group of investors, and they're not just putting money in. They'll have resources and to help and guide, as well. Not that you're going to need much. You've been around the block, for a bit. So a little bit on that, the IPO marketplace has been closed for an awfully long time. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the longest time I remember. After 2001, it was closed down for it might have been 7 years. So maybe that period was longer than the one that we're in right now. You seeing any signs of the IPO market opening up? Not that you're ready for an IPO yet.
Not that, I'm not careful. I don't get ahead of myself. I think what happened is over the last 3, 4, 5 years, there was a compression. People's futures, people start baking in the next 5 years, 10 years worth of growth into smaller and smaller rounds. And when the market, when the bubble bursts, as it did about 2-3 years ago, it kind of there's a lot of reaction to that, and people have to decompress. And in decompressing, the rounds, Silicon Valley works best when it's a nice and steady each round, better than the prior round. Yeah. When you have down rounds, that's a lot of indigestion that goes on. And the combination of the public markets, the political landscape, and there's a lot of macro trends and all that stuff. So I expect that there's always in these such markets flight to quality. I think there are some major, massive trends alive. I think AI is going to unleash a whole bunch of there's going to be a lot of AI washing and things like that in the short term. But in the end, there will be true AI companies that emerge whose names we do not know yet. And I think as that happens, and AI based efficiencies and productivity, there'll be IPOs coming along. But I think the rush to IPOs being an end in itself. What we come to realize is IPOs is just a marker on the path of great companies that scale. If you look at it as a destination, then it is never works out properly for you. More importantly, is it's a milestone that helps you raise more capital to scale the company more than ever before. And those are the kind of things I expect. If I had to predict, I'd say it'll take maybe 2-3 years before the markets open up again in a bigger way.
So we're still in that kind of contraction and kind of the weeding out kind of process, you know. Yes. So it's like, down rounds are demoralizing, you know, for everyone that's involved in that. It's like it's very difficult for like employees who have put so much time and energy and effort, you know, into something, and all of a sudden see like, you know, their valuations get, you know, shrink, you know, and that's that's never a good thing. But that's capitalism, right? That's kind of the, you know. Survivors, you know, you got to, like, when you're working it, you got to work it hard, you know, and you got to just make it all work. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you're wrong. You know, you would think like there's so much money on the sidelines, and we see kind of what's happening with the stock market. You would think that there's a appetite for a new set of companies, you know, to come in. So, but we'll see. Yeah.
I think the companies are going to emerge. It's just a question of when the exits occur. I think a lot of great companies are being built as we speak right now.
True.
Because these are, in fact, the best times for companies to get, you know, become seed companies, if you will. You know, that's just very clear.
No doubt. I'm so with you on that. It's like there are so many great companies. Like that process, it's almost like, you know, you think about kind of Napa, you know, it's like when you really have like a tough year for grapes, you usually have a really great wine, you know. Right. We're kind of in that, you know. There's a lot of if the companies that have survived during these last couple of years, they really kind of focus on the knitting. They focus on their customers, you know. They're stronger companies, you know, for it. Yeah. So, okay, all right, great. I actually have one little side question for you. What do you do when you're not working? It's like, like all of us, like we spend so much time with work, you know, but like family, personal time, like what do you do?
Yes, I love traveling. We travel all over the world. Anytime we can get a chance, we travel. We love soccer teams. My favorite my favorite sports teams are the Barcelona club where Messi was there. So we love going for soccer games. We love the 49ers here and things like that. So we love sports and all. And I truly enjoy entrepreneurship. So I love working with people, coming up with ideas, and all, even in my side time and all that stuff. Again, involved my kids, daughters, and a lot of different things there. But importantly, like you say, it's about a nice balanced life, and this is a means to an end. And really, the entrepreneurship part of it is really what keeps me going, because in a way you're contributing to a much better connected world. And everything that we've been doing over the last 30 years has been all about getting more and more folks to communicate with each other easily, quickly, you know, bringing families together, bringing friends together, you know, closing. All these things are highly, and I see it as a continuum. And especially in today's world, there's a continuum between work and play and, you know, home and all that kind of good stuff. So we love traveling is the best way to get all of those different experiences distilled. I think you do a bit of traveling too, right?
Yeah, you know, we're now starting to kind of explore going down to Florida for like winters. Like I've never been a fan of Florida. Like it's like it wasn't my cup of tea. But then my wife started bringing me down to the West Coast, and actually started having a good time. And so like now we're going down for longer stretches, you know. But when our kids were really young, like, you know, we made a point to like, especially bring them into Europe, you know, for the summer. So they toured all over Europe. We didn't really get to Asia, but now they've kind of taken their journeys, their travel over there. But I think travel is very important to expose not only yourself, but your family and your kids, you know, to these different cultures and see how other people live. And it's a wonderful enrichment, you know, to your life, to be able to go and see how other people live, check their cuisines out, which is like always like just so great, their art, you know, and But Italy has got to be one of my favorite places, to go, especially Florence. I think Florence could be like one of my favorite cities.
Correct.
It's just the food is there. The art is just, amazing. The amount of, the only problem is we would usually go in the summer. That's the worst time to go.
Yeah, we were in Italy earlier part of this year. We're going there next year. Yeah, Italy is obviously really, really cool. So from so many different fronts. So
yeah, just so great. So yeah. Well, Allwyn, I wish you all the luck. Although you don't need it because I know you work really hard. You and the team over at Highway 9 Networks. Great concept. You're hitting all the major trends that are in the marketplace, which are really pain points, and that's always a good thing. So, I wish you and the team, the best of luck in executing, and we'll see you. We'll see you at the AI Networking Summit over at ONUG in May.
Yeah, before I sign off, I really want to give a shout out to the team. We've been doing this together for many, many years together, and everyone, and it's like good teams, in turn attract other good folks, and so it's a real movement that's beginning. I know you're going to be a big part of it, and we welcome all of you and your network to participate in this thing. I think it's going to be a great experience, and that's all of us involved with a transformation and all. There's something that's really something that's genuinely authentic about that experience. So we'd love to have every one of you participate in that and help make this a thing for us to all remember for a long time.
Awesome, that's great. Well, everybody, you can see Highway 9 and Allwyn at ONUG in May in Dallas. So come on down. We'll see you there. Yeah. Awesome, Allwyn. Thanks so much. I had a lot of fun. It was great.
Yeah, thank you,
everyone.
Yeah.